This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi and continuing coverage of the case against Bryan Kohberger.
It was 2:52 in the morning when Kaylee Gonzalez sent a text to her ex-boyfriend, Jack. It was just a simple message. One, girlfriends send boyfriends all the time, nothing dramatic. Kind of thing anyone might send after a night out, low stakes, maybe trying to reconnect, maybe checking in. She probably didn't think twice about it, and that's what makes it so gutting. Because that text, that was her last. Within minutes, someone would allegedly break into the off-campus home she shared with her best friend and two others. And by the time the sun came up, 4 students were dead. That detail, a time-stamped final message, is one of the many pieces of a timeline that Dateline NBC has now filled in with fresh, hard evidence. What we've seen as parts of this case trickle out before, probable cause affidavits, press briefings, TikTok theories, but this one kind of got our attention. A little bit different. This is Dateline laying it all out. And, like before things go to trial, you wait for it to be laid out in court. I kind of have been making the joke, first you hear it on Dateline, then it gets into court.
How are they getting access to things?
I don't know, and I'm not asking.
Okay.
Just going, this is interesting. But you don't reveal your sources, so I have no idea. Maybe they'll reveal that in the episode.
Hey, I'm not opposed. I'm just curious. How are you getting a hold of things that prosecutions should have and nobody else?
Leaks happen, but I don't know if that's how this happened. I have no idea. But they got it. And if you're watching this on the 9th of May 2025, you're going to want to make an appointment for Dateline tonight. In fact, we are. My girlfriend and me, she even said, how about we just stay in that night and we'll make some popcorn and we'll watch it. So.
Well, I suggested a watch party too.
We should all do it together. The watch party together. I'll get you on the
a Zoom.
On a Zoom or on the FaceTime or on the internets somehow. And this is going to be interesting. I'm going to go into the rest of the story here. But we're going to play the trailer for you as well here in just a little bit so you can hear Keith talking about what they're digging up. And yeah, it's kind of shocking. Surveillance footage, digital forensics, and expert analysis. It's like a puzzle that was snapping into place. And what we are left with is a story that's chilling, not just because of what happened that night, but because of what allegedly happened leading up to it. So let's start with what we know. What prosecutors say is the visual smoking gun, the car. Now, we've known for a while that investigators were looking for a white Hyundai Elantra. That detail came out early, and people zeroed in on it hard. But the footage that Dateline has, footage most of us have never seen before, takes that from theory to something much closer to reality. And we'll play it for you here in just a minute. What we see is a white sedan matching the make and the model doing something very specific. It doesn't just pass by the King Road house once. It circles.
Oh, no.
It loops.
Oh, no.
And it comes back. Again and again. Like
Stalker.
Like a shark in the water. And then about 13 minutes after this, the car speeds off. It's not grainy security cam nonsense either. This actually is high enough quality that we can, even as a casual viewer, make out the body shape of the vehicle. It's in high def. The timestamps match the known window of the murders. Investigators say this footage comes from Ridge Road, not far from the crime scene. And when you lay that over the digital timeline of the victim's last movements and critically, the movement of Bryan Kohberger's phone, it tells a story that is hard to ignore. Let's talk about that phone, because it didn't just ping near the crime scene the night of the murders. According to an FBI cell phone analyst featured on the special, Kohberger's phone connected to towers covering the King Road neighborhood 23 times.
Oh, God. Really?
Yeah, in the 4 months leading up to the killings. And here's the part that makes people's skin crawl. Every single one of those connections happened after dark. There's no daytime errands being run here, no passing through, just night visits. Like you do.
But he liked to look at the stars, Tony. Come on.
Specifically on King Road.
Well, yeah, maybe it had
Right
a good
there.
view. Maybe it was facing north and he was into the northern lights like I am.
That's
Right?
totally what that is. That's exactly what it is.
Uh-huh.
Tell you what, his alibis, the looking at the stars, that's gone now. I mean,
Yeah, it was cloudy that night.
Wasn't even let in to begin with because it was cloudy and because it's not an alibi. And now, because, he's clearly not there. One of those visits happened just 6 days before the murders. Now his defense has argued that he liked to go on drives at night, stargazing, clearing his head. They say the tower pings don't mean that it was at the house, and technically they're right. Cell towers don't put you on the porch, but when you're pinging the same area more than 20 times, all at night over a period of months, and you're later arrested for allegedly murdering the residents of that very home, well, let's just say it's kind of a pattern that makes jurors lean forward. And it's not just the phone and the car, there's the knife, or more specifically, the sheath. At the scene of the murders, police found the tan leather K-bar knife sheath next to Madison Mogen's body. That's not speculation. That's in the official documents. And on that sheath was a snap button. And on that snap button was DNA. And when they ran it, it didn't match anyone in the house, but it did match a familial profile linked to Bryan Kohberger. Investigators ultimately pulled trash from outside Kohberger's parents' house in Pennsylvania and matched that family DNA to the sheath. Here's what Dateline added to the mix. Months before the murders, in March of 2022, Kohberger had allegedly purchased the K-bar knife on Amazon. Same brand, same style, which means, according to prosecutors, that not only did he allegedly leave a part of the weapon behind at the crime scene, he bought the weapon itself along before the crime ever took place. It wasn't a snap decision. The state's timeline is correct. This was planned. And the planning didn't stop at Amazon orders. A Dateline special pulled in experts to talk about how all these pieces, footage of the car circling, phone pings, the DNA on the knife sheath fit together into a procedural or a prosecutorial narrative, not just of guilt, but of intent. It's one thing to say someone showed up and did something awful. It's another to say they watched, prepared, practiced, that they knew the rhythms of the house, that they studied it. One of the most haunting sequences in the Dateline special walks you through that timeline minute by minute. The girls arriving at home from the food truck, the DoorDash to Zaina, the phone calls to Kaylee's ex, and then the quiet, kind of eerie digital silent, no more texts, no more pings from inside the house. And during that same stretch, this is where the white Elantra, allegedly Kohberger's, looping the block again. On the security footage, it's not courtroom drama, it's data, time-stamped, location tagged, video verified material, and it's not the whole case, but it is a big chunk. And to be clear, the defense is still insisting that Kohberger is innocent. They've said there's many other alternates going on here, maybe alternate suspects. They've challenged the reliability of cell phone towers. They almost certainly argue that the white Hyundai Elantra and some overlapping cell tower don't prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt. That is their job. That's the system. From a storytelling perspective, from the point of view of trying to understand what allegedly happened that night, it's hard to ignore how tightly this timeline now fits. He has the car. He bought the knife. His phone was near the house 23 times. He was allegedly there in the exact window of the murders. He drove home. And now there's that surveillance footage that lets us watch the movements in real time. If you're trying to plan the perfect crime, you'd want to leave as little of yourself behind as possible. You want to avoid cameras. You want your phone off, and you'd want the murder weapon gone. What this new batch of evidence suggests is that the person who did this, whoever it was, left a lot behind. And not because they weren't trying to be careful, but maybe because there's no such thing as a perfect crime when the world is covered in cameras and data and DNA. It's one thing to track someone's movements, that where, the when, the how, that's data. It's directional. But knowing where someone was doesn't tell you why. Doesn't explain what's brewing behind the surface. And that's where behavior comes in. The psychological breadcrumbs that, when laid out, don't just show us what the person did, but how they think, how they escalate, and in some cases, how they allegedly start testing the limits of what they can get away with. And if Dateline's latest reporting is any indication, Bryan Kohberger left more of those breadcrumbs than anyone might have realized. Let's start with the search history. Yes, we now have a search history. We've been saying this for a long time. Wonder what's going to be on that.
Again, before you and I started recording today, I made the comment that my search history has got to be just twisted as fuck.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, you're looking up specific crimes, though. You're not looking.
I'm not looking at
methodology.
Up how to commit a crime.
Yeah. So you have a lot of names in there of current things, but you're not looking up like methodology or. But
like when Lori Daybell was talking about luminol and the bat, I was looking that up and asking Chat GPT, like, if there's no blood on something, would luminol still? I was asking questions.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah.
if somebody wanted to say, well, wait a minute.
Well, you have the perfect out.
True.
Yeah. I mean, now that's a movie right there. I wonder if, hasn't there been things where there's been like true crime people that have actually committed crimes and then they look at their search. Yeah. I don't know. Because you can be like, the true crimer who's looking up all these things and you can just say it's part of the show and you can prove it. And then it relates to the crimes that you yourself are committing. Involving luminol. Law enforcement, through court filings and confirmed by the Dateline special, obtained access to Kohberger's phone data. What they found wasn't your average search log. We're talking about terms like Ted Bundy.
Oh.
And not in a research paper on serial killers kind of way either. These searches were allegedly made in the weeks leading up to and following the murders, but it didn't stop with Bundy. Kohberger's search history also included pornographic terms involving people who were unconscious, terms like drugged, passed out, sleeping. Not once, not randomly, but as part of a pattern of activity that disturbed even seasoned investigators. So, as we're learning, it appears, allegedly, Kohberger is into the idea of having sex with people who are not conscious.
Did he watch the Cosby Show growing up or something?
That was only in a few episodes, and that was only in the DVD extras.
I'm just saying, my childhood idol was ruined.
Yeah.
When we learned what Bill Cosby did. So just, the guy might have an out.
Does it surprise anyone? No. There was no, SA going on in the actual, at the crime scene. So that did not take place. But the brutal nature of it, is what really kind of suggests that there was something. And just the targeting of these women. And just what we know about Kohberger, having a lot of issues with women in general.
A lot of anger.
And he goes after these. No one's suggesting that Googling something is a crime, but when those search terms appear alongside a triple major in criminology, late night drives past a murder scene, a DNA on knife, it doesn't take an FBI profiler to raise an eyebrow. In fact, they had a conversation this morning with Robin Dreek about it, that this whole thing, we talked about a half hour, and that's a piece that they're going to be out here on our feed today. You might find that rather interesting. Robin, the former head of the counterintelligence behavioral analysis program. So we dive into the behavior quite a bit. And it's fascinating, so check that out. Still, Dateline didn't leave it there. They brought in retired FBI behavioral analysis unit expert Greg Cooper to weigh in. And what he had to say added a level of depth most of us wouldn't have pieced together on our own. Cooper pointed to what he called progressive domination, a term used to describe individuals who don't just commit acts of violence out of impulse, but build up to them. They push boundaries, they test the system, and often before something overtly violent happens, there's a phase of rehearsing, fantasizing, and low-level manipulations, which brings us to something that until recently hadn't been publicly confirmed: the alleged break-in. According to Dateline's report, before the murders ever happened, Kohberger allegedly broke into a female grad student's apartment. She didn't know it was him. In fact, she didn't even know anyone had broken in at first. What she did notice was that things had been moved around, subtly, not stolen, just disturbed. Enough to be noticed, enough to create unease. And when she told her friend, Kohberger, he offered to help, suggesting installing surveillance cameras in her apartment to make her feel safer.
No. And let me guess, he's installing them and then he's got access to them.
Here's a twist. Dateline confirms that investigators now believe Kohberger himself staged the break-in, that the rearranged belongings were in part a plan to be invited in to gain access to play the role of protector while actually being the cause of the fear. And according to Dateline sources, once those cameras were up, Kohberger allegedly had access to her Wi-Fi network and may have used it to monitor her activity remotely whenever he was nearby.
Oh, my God.
And that kind of setup, a staged break-in followed by an offer to help, isn't just manipulative, it's controlling. It's, according to Greg Cooper, the profiler, exactly the sort of psychological rehearsal that often precedes far more dangerous behavior. It's not about stealing, it's about control, about power, about testing whether someone can be frightened without ever realizing who's pulling the strings. And when you zoom out, when you connect that to the phone pings, the knife, the searches, it starts to look less like a one-time act of violence and more like a pattern that was building long before King Road. But it doesn't stop with stalking or digital footprints. Kohberger's social behavior in the months leading up to the murders also came under scrutiny, thanks to new accounts that are shared by Dateline by his former classmates. One woman, identified as Holly, recalled meeting Kohberger at a party shortly after he moved to the area. They made small talk, harmless stuff about hiking and graduate classes. Nothing stood out until the next day. That's when she got a message from him. It read, "Hey, I'm pretty sure we spoke about hiking trips yesterday. I really enjoyed that activity, so please let me know. Thanks."
Oh, God. That sounds a little formal.
That's what she said, too.
You want to go hiking sometime?
"Hey, I'm pretty sure we spoke about hiking trips yesterday. I really enjoyed that activity, so please let me know. Thanks."
Even ChatGPT is more casual than this.
That's someone who doesn't know how to communicate, and it's a learned behavior.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to emulate other people who communicate, and this is what you get. It's like a cheap Chinese knockoff of communication.
He's a Timu.
Yeah, exactly. On its face, it's not threatening, but Holly described it as almost overly formal, like someone trying to role play a normal interaction and missing the mark. Yeah, exactly what I just said. And given what we now know, or at least what's been alleged, it takes on a different tone, not just awkward, controlled, performed like it was working off of a script. Other classmates told Dateline they had similar experiences, interactions that were stilted, forced, or invasive. One woman described how Kohberger inserted himself into conversations about spirituality or personal boundaries, only to follow up with texts that made her uncomfortable. These weren't crimes, but in hindsight, they stood out as early signs of someone who was trying to test what people would tolerate. Socially, emotionally, a person gauging reactions, studying discomfort like a lab subject. And that's what happened after the murders. Kohberger returned home to Pennsylvania over winter break. The trip itself was uneventful, at least on the surface. drove cross country with his father, got pulled over in Indiana, stayed with his family. But according to Dateline sources, it wasn't long before some of his relatives started noticing strange behavior. The most immediate red flag, Kohberger was wearing latex gloves constantly.
Don't most people do that?
All the time.
I'm confused.
Around the house, while touching doorknobs, handling things in the kitchen. Not casually, deliberately. And then came the bleach. Kohberger allegedly spent a significant amount of time cleaning out his car, meticulously. One family member reportedly observed him removing items, scrubbing surfaces, and then repeating the process. According to the Dateline report, this was not your standard road trip cleanup. It was clinical. And perhaps the most telling moment came when Kohberger was observed placing his trash into individual plastic baggies, sealing them, and then disposing of them in a neighbor's bin, not the family's. That act raised enough concern within the household that one of his sisters reportedly confronted the family directly, saying she feared Bryan might be the person responsible for the Idaho murders.
Oh, my. Okay. Oh, boy. How many times do you suspect a family member of a crime based on what you've seen them do, like in the last 20 minutes? How often does that pop up in your life? Unless you're looking at things going, oh my God, A plus B plus C equals D. Holy shit.
I can't say I've ever been there.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Do you lock yourself in the bathroom, shut the door, stare at yourself in the mirror and go, I think I have a serial killer in my house. I got to do something.
I think you sit the family down around the hearth, because it was around the holidays.
Yeah, it was. The Christmas tree is up in the corner.
You light a fire. You put some candles on. You turn on some Jim Brickman, and you got the nice piano playing in the background. Family meeting, everyone. Family meeting. And everybody sits down.
Now, is Bryan there? Or is he still out by the dumpster with his gloves and his Ziploc bags?
That'd be an interesting one.
Yeah. I would think he'd be outside. They locked the door like, we got to talk without him here.
He's outside, but he doesn't know why. He's howling at the door like a dog.
Yeah.
And he's pawing. He's just scratching because he thinks it's learned behavior. He thinks that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
It's like communication. I really enjoy this activity, scratching at the door. I don't know. But you sit down. I mean, I'm guessing if this is true, she probably went to, maybe it says what happens here. I believe she went to the parents and it was dismissed, at least by dad, strongly. In response, some family members quietly searched his vehicle for anything suspicious. So you actually go out to your kid's car because you were that suspicious. That's not good. That's why some of them are very likely going to be testifying against him.
Wow.
They didn't find anything overt, but the concern was real, tangible. And as Dateline noted, just days later, Kohberger was arrested in the early morning hours by a tactical team. But one of the sisters was going, I told you so! When agents arrived at the home, Kohberger was reportedly already awake and still wearing gloves. Kind used to avoid leaving fingerprints or DNA.
What in the name of
what is he even doing at this point with it? Like, why? I mean, that's a lot of paranoia right there. I think that's I don't know.
That boy is not right.
Well, is he psychopath? Because that really shows like a discern for getting caught or not, or
yeah,
I don't know. That boy's not right. I actually used to, when I was in radio, my first station, that was one of my sweepers. It was that boy's not right.
I remember. Yeah, I think, didn't you have one of those where we were?
I think I got another one made there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it was like one of the first ones that one of my first bosses got for me. I was like 15, 16 on the air, and we got the voice guy cut something, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And he wrote that boy ain't right. You know, none of this on its own proves guilt but put together it outlines a behavioral arc that experts call a progression. That's a before filled with warning signs, and there's an after filled with concealment, and in between, a brutal crime. According to Greg Cooper, the progression fits a profile he's seen before. It's not random, it's not sudden, it's layered. A slow testing of limits, a drive for control that moves from passive observation to active manipulation, and eventually to irreversible action. It's not a story about a single violent night. It's a story about what builds beneath the surface when no one's watching or when someone thinks no one is. There's a lot in this case and a lot to be unpacked in the Dateline special. We'll have clips of it next week and we'll discuss. I wonder what else is going to come out in it, because a lot of times the previews reveal a lot. But I believe there's going to be more. I wonder exactly what that will be. I'm sure.
Well, they're not giving away everything in the preview, so it's going to be one of those "oh my god" moments. Don't you think?
I don't know. I think these are already "oh my god" moments, I think. But actually seeing the photos, I think learning. I want to learn more about the context of the photos, what he had on his phone. What more of these texts sounded like. I think there'll be a lot more of that in depth that are just, it's going to fully enforce everything even stronger. And God, I mean, the thing is, the prosecution knows what's going to be coming out in court. The defense knows what's going to be coming out in court. So,
do you think they knew that they know about this? They had to have, right?
Well, at the end of the day, does it matter? It's all going to come out in court anyhow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the public finding out about it a few months early, I mean, that you could argue, if you're going to go legal with it, it could be, well, that's going to taint a jury pool and all of that. But they already moved it to Boise, so you're already tainted, no matter what. There's already so much about this case that's out there. And it will be all presented in court. Like, none of this is like fictional things that you're not going to end up hearing about. But the fact that the defense of Kohberger knows all of these things already, and a lot more, I'm sure. I'm still wondering if there's going to be some sort of a plea deal. This is just it's stacking and stacking and stacking, and I don't know how you beat this with any sort of sense of a reasonable doubt.
This is going to be hard for him.
Especially when you get like family members testifying. Yeah. And on that note, let's watch the preview and you can see for yourself what is going to be coming out in this episode here of Dateline. Let me just get it pulled up.
Can't wait to see this.
All right. Get out your mini popcorn.
In this house, just steps from campus, in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, 4 University of Idaho students, Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xander Carnodal, and Ethan Chapin, were stabbed to death. Their accused killer, Bryan Kohberger, faces trial this summer. He's pleaded not guilty. For the last 2.5 years, Dateline has been on the ground, reporting, gathering, and learning from people with direct knowledge of the case. We've obtained things that have never before been seen publicly, like these security videos from a camera on a house near the murder scene, videos that show a white sedan, a car that investigators believe was driven by Bryan Kohberger making repeated passes at the King Road house that night before the murders. With evidence like this and our reporting, we have assembled a timeline for the weeks, months, and days before and after the murders. Starting with a pool party Kohberger attended in July, just after he moved to the area in pursuit of his PhD in criminology. An exclusive interview with a woman who exchanged numbers with Kohberger, then did not return his text.
The universe intervened and for whatever reason just distracted me from further engaging in that interaction.
We'll also reveal records from Kohberger's cell phone that are in the possession of law enforcement and Google searches regarding the serial killer Ted Bundy. We have also seen these. Dozens of photos in Kohberger's cell phone, browsing history, women from Washington State and the University of Idaho, including close friends of the King Road victims. Dateline has also obtained records showing the details of what an FBI cell phone expert has claimed to be in the months before the murders, 23 occasions, when Kohberger's phone connected to a cell tower, providing coverage to within 100 meters of the house at 1122 King Road. And in the hours after the murders, details of the timing of phone calls Bryan Kohberger made to a phone linked to his parents just before the controversial selfie he took. And we'll talk to the mother whose daughter was supposed to be staying in the house the night of the murders, but a change of plans may have saved her daughter's life.
How soon was it that you thought, my God, she was going to be there?
I didn't think about that right away.
Oh.
All I could think about was the kids.
Makes you sad too, doesn't it?
It does. Sorry.
So many damaged families. Angela Nevejas told us that her daughter Ashlyn, Maddie Mogan's best friend, moved away from Idaho and now refuses to come home to visit because of the trauma associated with the murders. She's hoping some of that may change and Ashlyn will start to grieve after Bryan Kohberger's trial.
There you go. Dateline tonight. You can see the full 2-hour episode of all of that. What do you think?
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot. And if you want to hear a breakdown on what our FBI expert, Robin Dreek, former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, has to think about what we've seen thus far, that will be airing today on our channel, Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi, or True Crime Today, or the Bryan Kohberger podcast channel as well, where we focus on that case. It's a fascinating one. We talked for about a half hour, and he breaks down his thoughts on what we've seen thus far. So a lot to come in this case, and more questions. A lot more questions.
Craving non-stop true crime updates? Press subscribe now and get the latest cases, analysis, and expert commentary delivered straight to your feed. Only from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.